Hello, Shannon from the Pigeon Letters Design Team, and today we are going to be painting a wet on wet watercolor galaxy using carrying markers. Be sure to check out the Pigeon Letters blog post to see the full list of supplies that I'll be using. So the first thing we're going to do is prepare our paper, and to do this, simply use some masking or washi tape to secure the edges of the paper onto your surface. This will prevent it from warping when we add our water, and it will also create a very nice white border all around our painting. Once your paper is taped, you can then use a large flat brush to evenly wet the entire surface. You want it to be very glossy and not to have any puddles in any areas. Now we're going to start adding our color. So the reason why I'm using carry markers for this tutorial is because you can press the nib of the marker onto the wet paper wherever you want your colors to appear. The ink will then bleed and it won't damage the nib of your marker. And as you can see, as I continue to add color, the saturation is the same. It doesn't lighten because of the water around it. So that is why I would definitely recommend you try it with the carry markers. Once your colors have been added, you can then use a large paintbrush to blend the colors all around the paper. This part can be a little tricky because you can easily overblend an area or you can hide a color. So to avoid this, make sure that your brush is completely clean before you start pulling a new color into your white areas. At this stage, you need to also keep in mind which areas you want to remain very light or white, because you should avoid pulling your colors into those areas, as it will be very difficult to lighten them once the paint has already dried. So continue to blend your colors all around the paper, and if you need to add in more water, simply just take up some with your brush and add it onto the paper. You want to make sure that all of the paper remains evenly wet. You don't want any parts to dry because this will create harsh edges, and we want the blend to look very smooth. So after you spread that first set of color, you can then start to build up or intensify your colors. And another fun technique I like to do with the carrier markers is to use a wet paintbrush to pull some color directly from the nib of the marker. With this technique, you don't have to worry about damaging the nib of the marker either, because the wet paintbrush naturally causes the paint to flow into the bristles of the paintbrush, and the nib of the marker doesn't get dried out. If I find that the nib seems to be drying out a little bit, I just switch to another color and give that ink some time to get back into the nib. Continue adding and spreading your colors until you're satisfied with that layer. Then allow it to completely dry. If you need to, you can use a heat gun to speed up the process. The next step is to paint our second layer of color. So you're going to re-wet the paper just like you did in the first step, and you don't want to reactivate any of the colors, so you're going to do this very quickly and with a large brush so that you don't have to use too many swipes of water across the page. Again, your paper should be glossy without having any puddles. Then you're going to repeat the technique where you add color, alternating between using the marker directly onto the paper wherever you want a more saturated version of the color, and then using the paintbrush with the paint to build up any other areas as well. Once you're finished adding those colors, simply allow the paper to dry again before we move on to the final layer. You're going to re-wet the paper again, and instead of starting with those lighter colors, you're going to use your black marker to add your black all around the edge of the paper as well as to any other areas that you want dark. During this step, you can also add some of the other colors where you feel they need to be darkened. Once you're finished adding your colors, you can allow this layer to dry completely. Then use some type of opaque white ink or paint. This can be gouache or acrylic or even a gel pen to add some stars to your galaxy. And that is it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed learning a fun new way that you can experiment with these carry markers. And if you try this tutorial, please feel free to share it with me at by Shannon on Instagram. I would love to see how yours turned out.